Good morning, everyone. I'm going to do a talk now entitled The Flowering of the Mind. So let's all get relaxed, feel calm and tranquil. Just let our minds be open to whatever's being said. And I'm going to start with a quote from Krishnamurti. Fear is what prevents the flowering of the mind. Fear is what prevents the flowering of the mind. And the world today presents many problems for those who are trying to live a spiritual life and who want to relate to their fellow human beings in a positive and helpful way. Indeed, this can be extended to all living things. However, the mindset of society in general is opposed to such an attitude and coerces us all in the direction of separateness. And fear is often used to control the masses, very predominant in modern society. How can the world we live in, with all the beauties of nature and the wonders we can see when we gaze into the illuminated sky, give rise to all the harshness and cruelty that is so predominant? The mind has the power to soar and to embrace the universe, if it so wishes. But current education and life in general keeps it well and truly manacled. This leads to a complete misunderstanding of what we can become if only we meditate upon the potential flowering of the mind in directions that lead it above the confines of the images and concepts that restrict its awakening. The mind is a gateway to innumerable states of being, as it is the creator of the world that we live in, which is different for every single person. We all have our unique realities, which in the end are just passing illusions. Beyond the cacophony is a place of infinite calm and peace, to our limited senses perhaps, but may hold many secrets that only the illumined mind can comprehend. It is the awakening to insights that are beyond the mind, but of which the mind is the key. Now, there is a strange occurrence that manifests in times of great duress, that people suddenly discover that place of peace and healing in the midst of all the turmoil. This was very evident in World War II and all of the conflicts, past and present. How do people find beauty when they are surrounded by violence and ugliness? Well, Etty Hillesum, a young woman who died in a concentration camp in 1943, had suffered a life of depression and uncertainty, but when imprisoned, she finally awoke to her divine nature and became a light to others who were struggling. One of her quotes that illustrate this is, "The misery here is quite terrible, and yet, late at night, when the day has slunk away into the depths behind me, I often walk with a spring in my step along the barbed wire. And then time and again, it soars straight from my heart. I can't help it. That's just the way it is. Like some elementary force, the feeling that life is glorious and magnificent, and that one day we shall be building a whole new world." Such an attitude makes us human, makes us aware that there is that dimension to our being that nothing can touch, and that at the 59th minute of the 11th hour, something comes to our rescue and lifts us above all the turmoil. When life is good for people, when everything is fine, then there's no need to go beyond the workings of the lower aspects of the mind and it is content with all the sensual thoughts and concepts that keep it in check. It is when something traumatic happens that the comfort zone collapses and we draw upon something that has been hidden from us. This may not happen in every case, but if the time is ripe, it is an initiation into a deeper understanding of the world and what makes it a beautiful place, despite everything that goes on around us. It is a vision that arises from within and a true insight into the transient nature of all those things that give us pain and the eternal spirit that never experiences any kind of suffering. So there is this something deep within each one of us that takes no note of conditions, but finds its strength in something much, much deeper. It's important to remember that this is who and what we are in reality. In this world, we live a false life, moulded by education and society in general. We are made to fit into pigeonholes. We become a collection of names and concepts that are not our own, so that we slot into the world created by others, based on materialistic ideas and the cult of the personality. So it takes something either traumatic or wonderful to take us beyond all that and to see our true self in a transcendental divine life. And this is our natural life. It isn't weird or mystical, really. It is just how we should be when all the masks are removed. Think about it. Are we ever able to be what we are with all the pressures and distractions that life throws our way? Perhaps in quiet moments of meditation or out in the country and in nature, we have these intimations of our immortality, but these rarely last for very long. It's always very useful to be alone sometimes. If we go out into the countryside with others, we may lose some of the benefits with meaningless conversation, unless we are lucky enough to be out there with a twin soul, with whom we are able to share the beauty. Nowadays, people seem to prefer the counterfeit world of the internet to the real one, and are too engrossed in their phones to be aware of the wonders around and within them. Yet we should not be too critical of human nature. Most of us have a longing for something more permanent amidst the ever-changing kaleidoscope of life, and we too often fill this longing with transitory objects, ideas and thoughts. What is eternal in us makes us awaken in so many ways. It transforms us into real humans, expressing in our lives the spontaneity of being alive with an inspiration of our own as our guiding light. There may be this gap between speaking about living a spiritual life and actually putting it into practice. It is easy to use words, but difficult to actually manifest them in our day-to-day lives with all the pressures of modern-day society and the instantaneous reactions we have to certain situations that override any noble thoughts we may entertain in our quiet moments alone, when we have time to reflect unchallenged. With persistence, we can reach that calm centre no matter where we are and in what set of circumstances. Everything is a learning process, and nothing really is a mistake, if only we use it in the right way to gain more understanding of our true nature and that of others. Failures can become successes. We can always turn the mind around if we so wish and bathe in the light of the Spirit. We are only limited by the misunderstanding of that true nature and the limitless potential that is ours for the taking. Love and peace are words that are used almost ad nauseum in the world today. Do we really know the power of these words when transformed into positive actions for the good of humanity? Do any of us really understand the sacrifices made by so many to make them a living reality in our daily lives? They are the alchemy that will transform this planet into a golden age of light and love, if only we make the effort to comprehend what that really means beyond the words. The world thrives on noise and disharmony. The universe exists in a state of tranquility and serenity. We are that universe, microcosms of the macrocosm. We have all the powers of the universe within us, waiting to manifest and bless and save humanity. The heart is the centre of spiritual consciousness. Let us radiate out from that sacred place the vibrations that will help to bring peace to this troubled world, and not be put off by the seeming impossibility of the task. Spiritual powers are countless times more potent than material ones, and it is essential to be aware of this. It is our talisman. Love is the greatest power, and is a reflection in us of the harmony that lies at the heart of this universe. It can bring about wondrous changes in the consciousness of humanity, and is sorely needed in these difficult times. Bankei, the Zen master, told us never to change our unborn Buddha mind, for a mind of anger, jealousy, lust, etc. These false minds are just waves on the vast ocean of being. We have to look into the reason why most people nowadays take an aggressive attitude in whatever they do. This, of course, is most dangerous in people who hold positions of power in the world. And one of the main reasons is that in schools, etc., we are educated regarding facts about certain things, but not much is done to develop a positive attitude to life with respect for one's fellow creatures. How much emphasis is put upon love and compassion? And if not, why not? Why do we shy away from such things? Even within families, such essential qualities are rarely mentioned. Of course, this is not to give credit to those families who are helping their children to become more heart-centered. But we need more families to do that, more people to do that. There may be few and far between today. The modern idea is that sport and physical activity are the answers to the problems that face young people. But these can create competitiveness and aggression against the opponent. It is divisiveness and separateness again. There are obviously many positive traits developed by practicing certain physical disciplines, such as determination and perseverance. But people need to be taught to be loving, caring, and gentle in their lives as well. These are by far the most important in a world where hardness of heart seems to be predominant. An appreciation of beauty and what is truly beautiful in the eyes of the soul can help us to awaken to the wonder that lies behind the apparent chaos. Beauty kindles within us the sacred flame that burns on the altar of our innermost being. This is the fire that consumes all that stands in the way of the love that unites us as a true community of lovers of truth and beauty. The world suffers because of its alienation from what is truly beautiful. Yet the beauty of nature can bring us to tears because the soul knows for what it yearns, surrounded as it is daily by those images and thoughts that stifle its natural inclination to what transcends a world built upon that which is antagonistic to such an inspirational awareness of what we truly are, what we truly love in the midst of the cacophony of modern life. The pre-Raphaelite painter Edward Burne-Jones expressed this feeling when he wrote, "The more materialistic science becomes, the more angels shall I paint. Their wings am I protest in favour of the immortality of the soul. The more materialistic science becomes, the more angels shall I paint. Their wings are my protest in favour of the immortality of the soul. The mind can blossom in the light of true beauty. Most times the mind is closed like a flower in darkness, but when daylight comes, it opens its petals to the morning sun. In the same way, the mind knows those things that stimulate it and help it to grow in the radiance of the spirit. It must become free and spontaneous rather than shackled to ideas and concepts that drag it down and keep it manacled. There's a song that says, "What the world needs now is love, sweet love. It's the only thing that there's just too little of." I may have used it before, but it's very true. In religions, New Age and spiritual circles, it may have been used countless times so that it becomes a case of familiarity breeds contempt, but it still remains the most important aspect of the pilgrimage, and without it, all else is pointless in this world. It is lack of it that creates the fear and hatred that separates us as human beings. Love is what makes us truly human, helps us on our way to becoming what we are beyond the human stage. It may be an overused word in today's world, but how many have even an idea of what it really is and how it can be transformative? When the mind is illumined by the Spirit, it begins to see the harmony behind the chaos, and this is love in the truest and highest sense. Even on a material level, when we truly love someone, it is because we see that harmony within them, despite the many flaws they may have on the surface. Never stop having faith in human nature, because in essence, the race of man and woman is divine. The Voice of the Silence by H.P. Blavatsky tells us that the mind is the great slayer of the real. Let the disciple slay the slayer. This refers to the lower aspects of our mind, caught up in material ideas and concepts. Only when this is transcended can the higher aspects be blessed by the pure light of the Spirit. The mind can also be the liberator. It is the key to escape from the coils of the great serpent of illusion and put us on the way to realizing our true potential. That the world is often such a sad place is because we do not realize this. Many of the world's religions are willing to sacrifice lives for their belief, willing to go to war because they believe their way is the only way. And this belief is based upon the flimsiest of propositions that people of very little understanding take as gospel, literally. These are the ones that start conflicts, as they have no comprehension of the true teachings of their particular religion. That thousands and millions of lives have been lost as a result of this is truly tragic. Both the participants equally believe their way to be the only way. But of course, this is an absurdity. If we look deeper, we will find that there are hundreds of sects and cults springing from the mother religion, each thinking their own way is right. This confusion of the mind is what leads the planet on a downward path. Beyond all of this is the beacon light of truth that shines equally in the heart of every living thing and reaches self-consciousness in the human stage, where we have the power to take our spiritual progress in our own hands. But to do this at the level of the lower mind leads to all the misunderstandings and horrors that spring from the divisions created by the exoteric religions that are laced with all the lower emotions and thoughts. In fact, it is not just in religion that the lower mind creates an atmosphere of gloom. One needs just to look at the faces of people walking along the city street. Many seemed weighed down by life's stresses and strains. The old Indian saying, "The smile that you send out returns to you," is less likely to be true in today's world. The light of the spirit is shut out by worry and worldly concerns. On the other end of the scale, there are those who live the life of indulgent luxury, who equally have no insight into their true nature. Perhaps it is those in between the two who have the greatest opportunity to set their feet upon the true path. It is time we opened our hearts and minds to our fellow human beings and our fellow creatures. One consciousness animates all things, and any idea of separateness is an illusion. Everything needs to be based upon this truth. The mind flowers in the light of the spiritual sun. As Philo Judaeus states, reason is in us what the sun is in the world. As long as our mind shines brightly and pursues its appointed course, pouring its noontide beams into every part of the soul, we are within our sober selves and not possessed. But when it comes to set, it is not surprising that the ecstasy and madness of divine possession should fall upon us. For when the divine light shines, the human light sets, and when the former sets, the latter dawns and rises. Our mind departs at the coming of the divine spirit, and returns when it departs. It is not lawful for mortal and immortal to dwell together. So what he's saying is, when the mind is following the ways of the world, we are still within the sensible realms, and we feel contented. The bliss we feel when we go beyond the mind is much different than that, because we lose touch with anything within the mortal realms. Then we find ourselves out of touch with the ordinary day-to-day thought patterns, and it is the state that Plato says is heaven-sent madness, which is preferable to man-made sanity. At some point, we need to see the world as it is and relate to our fellow creatures in a spontaneous way, rather than the ways we are taught to relate, ways that are based upon seeing other beings in the light of the spirit. That's what we need to see them, and therefore treating them as true brothers and sisters, rather than strangers or enemies. We all suffer because of the illusion of separateness. Let us just learn that the most important thing to realize and practice is to love. We must constantly be striving to teach the heart and mind to work together to make this a living reality in our day-to-day lives. There is only one thing in this world which is worth dedicating all your life to. This is creating more love among people and destroying barriers which exist between them. As I often say, the importance of keeping the light shining in these difficult times is as important as ever. And so all those who have even an inkling of the true dignity of human nature should be working towards that goal in whatever way they can, to the limit of their understanding. Just a couple of short quotes to finish. First by Leo Tolstoy. He says, "That feeling which solves all of the contradictions of human life and gives one the greatest bliss that is known to all people, this feeling is love." And Rumi, "Our task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it." So thank you all very much for listening. Go your way in peace, love and harmony. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace. Peace on earth and goodwill to all beings. And I'll see you all again very soon.